So right now we're in our Excel sheet, and we had created a pivot table summarizing our total revenue per the region, and we would like to add more pivot tables. We'd like to make more analysis based on this data. So we're going to try to now create more pivot tables and see how that looks like. So to create another pivot table, we don't have to go back to our sales data, then click insert. That one would work, but it's a bit tiresome. Excel has made it easy for you. You simply have to copy this. You just select and copy, and then you paste, and then you simply paste. So when you paste, it duplicates the pivot table, and now you can work with this pivot table. Of course, this will have its own challenges. In future, there we shall be learning about that, but it could still work perfectly well. So let's try to add country this time. So this time we're not going to click, we'll just simply click, but we could also drag that and put it under region. So as you can see, we have our countries and also the region, and we're still having our total revenue as the main component where we analyze our data. However, we don't want to look at only revenue. We want to look at other things, and we would also want to look at the item type, the sales channel, things like that. So let's copy another pivot table. We select and then we copy, and then paste here. So these headers are changeable. You can change to whatever you want, maybe region and country. Okay, so we are trying to create another pivot table. So we could copy pivot table there and we paste it just down here. Yeah. So this time you will untick what we don't want. You can untick that and remain with the, let's just untick everything. So when you untick everything, it will bring the original form of the pivot table as though you're just beginning. So we could now select the item type. So when you click item type, automatically it will go under the rows and brings all those items. And would now want to see how much each item is making, how much was sold per item, maybe the units. You click the units, so automatically the units will go under the values section. So that is how simple it is. So we could also try to know how much each item is making in terms of total profit. So that is the total profit. So we could create other pivot tables. We just simply copy this and paste. It doesn't have to be the first one. I'm just using it because it's a bit shorter. But you could also copy this very one we just used here. Let's try to copy this. It shouldn't be a must that you copy the very first one. So copy that and we paste it here. So the disadvantage is that when we put your pivot tables below a pivot table, then you get issues of overlapping, and I wouldn't really recommend. But in cases where you're sure of your data and you don't expect to add any more data elements or fields, it is still okay. So we have our pivot table here. We could also try to analyze it further. We could also look at the sales channel this time. So how much each sales channel is generating. We have the offline and the online. So we could establish which channel probably is giving us more profit than the other. Yeah, so that is how it is easy to create these pivot tables. And like I said, you can give these pivot tables colors, you can format them, you can go to the design tab and try to format these pivot tables to look a little bit nice. Okay, so we can give this color. Okay, yeah, like that. So another thing that we're going to look at today is how to how to um, to work around with the design tab. What does it do, and how best can you utilize it? So initially we've been mostly under pivot table analyze, and because we've been dealing with the field list. Okay, so but right now we can go to the design tab and also try to utilize some of the functions. So under the design tab, we have the first item here, the first icon here is for subtitles. So this will either remove the subtitles or add the subtitles depending. So let's say we don't want subtitles. Let's say for example here we have some subtitles and probably we don't need them. So when you click there, you could either say don't show subtitles, and you realize they have disappeared automatically. They have disappeared. The subtitles have disappeared. So you could also click show subtitles at the bottom of group. So you could also show subtitles at the top of group. So here I click at the top and they will come back. So same goes to the total. If you don't want to show this grand total here, right here, we could also go to the grand totals tab and we say off, we click off for the rows and columns and they will disappear. Okay, and if you want them to go back, still click in the pivot table, go to design, and you make sure you can define either to show only for rows or for columns. So for this particular one is columns, and it will come back. So we could also show totals by the rows. For example, let's try to click show for here, show for rows. Okay, so being an individual, we're only looking at total revenue. It's not going to bring it, of course, but in cases where we have more than one element to look at, it will bring the row totals. So let's show the column totals only for now. And that is how simple it is, guys, to deal with those grand totals. So we're also going to look at the report layout, and that shows the different forms in which your pivot tables could appear. So by default, they're appearing in a compact form, and we could change this into outline form, into tabular form, and all that. So let's try to change and see outline form. So when you click outline form, your table changes. Now it divides the region and the country. Initially it wasn't dividing. If I click undo, it wasn't dividing the region and the country. But when you select the layout, let's say tabular, it tabulates that, it divides the country and the region. So you could also do more with this. We could also use the repeat all item labels. So what does that? It really repeats everything. Let's click and see what happens. So we have clicked repeat item label. So it has repeated Asia all through. So initially, without this, let's say we don't repeat. So see how it looks like. So when you say you don't repeat, so it only brings Asia, then the countries, and then until it goes to another region, and then it bring the country. So that is how we can use the layout. And of course, the blank remove. So insert blank line after each item. So that's also an option you can try, but normally we don't use this, but you could just try and see what will happen. So what basically it does, it puts a blank like here after it puts a blank after each item. So it considers an item. For example, Asia is an item, and then each region is an item, so it leaves a blank. So if that makes you feel good, I mean, if that is what you want, then you could go for that. Okay, so that is now what the design tab could do. So the rest of the items here, we could do them maybe in other videos, but for now, that is what the design tab has. So Another thing we could also do is try to right click on the grand total, and when you right click, you could also remove this grand total pivot table. You click in the grand total itself and you remove it. Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, so we shall also look at the value field settings. And for the value field settings, it's 1, 2, 3, go and start. So we're also going to look at the value field settings, and these are the sums, the average, and the mean, the product, the maximum, and all that. So this could also be a very important aspect in your analysis. Take an example, would want to know the average total revenue, the average revenue per this region. So we simply go to the sum of total revenue and we click the drop down, and then we go to value field settings, and then we could just change to average and see what happens. So that is the average per the region in terms of the total revenue. Yeah, so we could also try maximum. So we could simply double click here, or we use the drop down the other side. So let's say maximum. So here it will bring the maximum revenue per those regions. So you could do a lot of things. There's product, there's standard deviation, there's variance, there's a lot of things that you could do. The product, count numbers, there are very many options you could try. So that is it. Thank you so much for watching. Don't miss our next series of pivot tables, because we're going to look at pivot charts and how to use slicers, how to do some interactive, kind of pivot tables. So see you next video.